7 p.m. Could I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Brewster? Here. Mr. Eddy? Mr. Carey?
Here.
Mr. Glissman? Ms. Shanks?
Here.
Mr. Wilbur?
Here.
Ms. Wood-Meek?
Here.
And Chairwoman Wright.
Here.
I move we excuse, have you heard from Stan, Eddie, and Tom Glissman?
I did hear from Mr. Glissman.
Uh-huh.
Mr. Eddy, I did not.
In any case, I move to excuse those two absent members.
Do I have a second?
Yes.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Brewster?
Here.
Yes.
Yes. Every time.
Mr. Carey?
Yes.
Ms. Shanks?
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Wilbur?
Yes.
Ms. Wood-Meek?
Yes.
Chairwoman Wright.
Yes.
Thank you.
First thing on the agenda is a formal introduction and welcome to our new student representative, Frederica Shanks. Would you feel comfortable telling us a little bit about yourself? I know that you're at Hayes and you're a senior and you want to go to Bowling Green, but
This year I am the Triumph president of my school's organization, which is like the National Honor Society, but for music students.
Okay.
I'm an orchestra and choir. I play the cello and I play the saxophone. I do the pit. I like doing the musicals and theater. And I'm kind of just going about like things I like. I'm really into environmental science. I'm taking AP Environmental Science with Jeffrey Bakunis this year. And I'm on student council as well. Yes. Yeah, I just really like helping out.
good. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you.
Have you lived in Delaware pretty much your whole life?
Pretty much
Oh, good.
since second grade.
Okay. So we'll introduce ourselves and I'll start down here with Dave.
My name is Dave Carey. We've been on the Shade Tree Commission for a long time, more than 10 years, I think. And I work with the U.S. Forest Service here. They have a research station north of town. I work on emerald ash borer, beach bark disease, other things as they come up.
I'm Tom Wilbur, also on the Shade Tree Commission for so many years I can't remember when I started. And I'm not a tree expert, but I'm a member of some local environmental groups, local activists and such.
I'm Susan Wright and I'm the acting chairperson because our chairman left the city and resigned a few months ago. So I also work for the Forest Service where Dave works, and I've been a member of the Shade Tree Commission, not as long as Dave, but it's more than 8 years, I'm guessing. I'm not really sure, for a while.
I'm Shannon Brewster. I'm a realtor and a landscape designer. I've been in Delaware about 6 years, and I love it here. I have a couple little kids, a couple of grandkids, so I stay kind of busy, but I love being on the Shade Tree Commission. And I love the things that we get to do in the community. So I think you might really enjoy them as well as active as you seem to be. And I've been on this commission either 1.5 years or 2.5 years. I mean,
And I am Becky Wood-Meek. I'm also a realtor. And I've been on the Shade Tree Commission for just about 1 year. I have a degree in agriculture and horticulture. And that's why I'm working as a realtor. And I grew up in Delaware, lived here for 42 years, and then I live here again.
I wanted to, we have introduced ourselves as staff already, and I'm Elaine McCloskey, City Council Clerk. I wanted to let you know that Ted Miller and myself went last week and met Frederica with her teacher at the school, and also our parks representative for the schools at the same time. And one of the things that we discussed was how can we get our students more involved in the Shade Tree Commission, because it is an intimidating to come in and sit at a formal meeting. It's a little bit probably a newer experience.
Yeah.
So we wanted to prepare her for that it is a formal meeting, even though it may seem we're fairly relaxed, but it's still recorded, things like that. But one thing that Ted and I discussed with her was possibly her working along with the Parks Board representative to, with the Arbor Day celebration.
I have that down, yeah.
So we were thinking that, we had talked in the past making it a school event somehow and seeing how we can bring them in. Now, obviously, she's very busy her senior year, so we may have to be something that we help guide her with, but it'd be a great experience, we thought.
Yeah.
Maybe to help, if that's something.
Strengthen that bridge between us and the schools.
And she had some great ideas of maybe trying to get some of her students, her fellow students involved in maybe like a trail cleanup or something like that.
Okay.
Just something so we can bring the schools more involved into this program.
Good idea.
That's what we're looking at.
That's a great idea.
So you're kind of our trial one. And, each year it'll get better, so if you're overwhelmed and if it's just too much, that's where I just say, reach out, let us know what's going on.
I will say that most of the activities that we do as outreach kinds of things in the community happen toward the end of the school year. Arbor Day, and we usually do the first Friday in May. And I know as a senior, you'll get really busy. And then the play, if you do the play again, that happens in that same time frame. So just sort of be aware of that, and we'll try to work with you and make it so that it all works out. Yeah, thanks. The next thing on the agenda is the election of officers. We delayed this from January. We're shifting to middle of the year. Is that
Correct, because all of our terms have changed to expire at the end of June.
okay?
It's just too difficult at the end of the year.
Right.
to be
You miss a
budgeted
meeting. Yeah.
Christmas time. And
Is this fiscal year for the city also June 30th? Okay. Well, right now I'm looking for any volunteer who would like to serve as a chairperson for the next year. Dave, you're the only one I haven't cornered.
Well, thanks for not cornering me.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. So you got takers, I assume, and it's a fight to the death to be chairperson.
Something
Is
like
what's going
that,
on?
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
We'd be happy to toss your name into the hat.
What's wrong? The rest of you.
No,
So I guess I take it you didn't have any luck, Susan.
No, I will do it. If I just wanted to make sure that you weren't dying for the opportunity again.
Oh, no.
You've done
I'm
it
not
a couple-
dying to do it,
You've
no.
done it in the past, and I
I
understand.
nominate Susan White as chair. The understanding is, that she is free to delegate tasks to us. Like I already volunteered to do the annual report again, produce a draft, etc. So she should not, the burden, the office should not be a burden. It should be a pleasure.
Exactly. I second that.
How do you feel about that?
I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do it for 1 year, and I will not do it for 2 years. Is that clear, everyone?
we'll talk.
Got it.
Do you want to vote on this separately then?
Yeah, we'll do that one separate. There's, I assume, no other nominations.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are there any other nominations from the floor?
Close the nominations. And
Roll call.
Ms. Brewster,
Yes.
Mr. Carey,
Yes.
Ms. Shanks,
Yes.
Mr. Rolber,
Yes,
Ms. Woodmeek,
Yes.
and Chairwoman Wright.
Abstain. I'm now looking for a nomination to be vice chairperson. This would be acting as chairperson in my absence and any other duties as assigned.
Why are you looking at me? Shannon, I think you would be great. I nominate Shannon Brewster.
I second the nomination.
You don't have to say yes. You can decline if you want to.
I think I can do it. I feel positive.
Yeah.
yeah. Go for it.
I too usually like to meditate on big decisions for a day or so.
Well, I'll give you 10 seconds.
Are there any other nominations from the floor? If not, I move that the nominations be closed and we take a roll call vote.
Ms. Brewster,
Yes.
Mr. Carey,
Yes.
Ms. Shanks,
Yes.
Mr. Wilbur,
Yes.
Ms. Woodmeek,
Yes.
Chairwoman Wright.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Congratulations to both of you.
The next item on the agenda, if you've had time to look at it, and if you can remember back 2 months, is the motion summary of the minutes of the June 26th meeting. This is not a question about the minutes as much as I don't see it on this month's agenda, and it's about the section where we discuss the meeting schedule. How did we leave that?
I think we were still doing the every other month, and then that was kind of going to go with staff comments for the discussion of the community outreach activities.
Okay,
We're September, looking at things for you, like what you were thinking you might want to do, so you're still meeting.
okay, okay.
And then you got my message, the email about Mr. Eklund attending a later meeting.
I remember, did he set a date?
I think it's going to be the October.
October meeting, okay,
It's been a little hectic
yeah.
for his staff. They've been very overwhelmed with cases coming in.
Yeah.
And so,
I guess that's good news.
I mean, it depends
Okay.
who's coming to the meetings.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, I got you.
But yeah, there is a lot of new development coming in. It's been very busy.
A related question, if I may ask. There was talk about changing meeting times from 7 p.m. to 6 p.m. Is that still on the radar? Or?
A little bit, yes. I think if there's any changes at this point, it will not happen until the beginning of the year.
Okay.
So that's still on the radar, but nothing's been formally decided.
Okay.
It's just, it doesn't make sense if we're going to do it to start it right now.
I'm looking for a motion to approve the motion summary.
So moved. I move we approve the minutes of the June 26th meeting of the Shade Tree Commission.
I'm happy to second that.
Roll call.
Mr. Carey,
Yes.
Ms. Shanks,
Yes.
Mr. Wilbur,
Yes.
Ms. Woodmeek,
Yes.
Vice Chairwoman Brewster,
You
Yes.
turn her off.
You got a dirty look instead of me that time.
and Chairwoman Wright.
Yes. Okay, public comment section of the meeting. We have no public here, so we'll move right into the arborist report, and it looks like Doug has prepared 2 months' worth.
Yeah, most of it's all the same, with the exception of the number of trees. June, three large trees were removed, 8 small caliper trees. 117 sidewalks were pruned. And then in July, the 4 large caliber trees, 9 small caliber trees, and we were able to prune a few more street trees with 139 street trees pruned. We've still working with the zoo and providing them with some browse when we can get together with them. And then one thing I did notice this year, pear trees in town were affected with a little fire blight this year, and we've lost a few of the pear trees, which can either be looked upon as a good thing or a bad thing, depending on your perspective at this time. But unfortunately, it's the way that nature is, and this year it chose pear trees.
Sorry about that. Those are planted as street trees in places?
They are.
Are they?
They are. It was widely used in the 70s and 80s as
Okay.
a common street tree, and we do have streets in town here that are populated with them.
Okay. I don't know if this is the appropriate spot to bring it up, but there was an email that was sent, and I saw a response from Tom. It was someone who lived in maybe the Lexington Glen that was concerned about some of the pruning. Do you remember?
I do, and I did respond to them. We sent them notice that has our proper pruning techniques that we use, why we do the things that we do, and such. Again, I think it's a shock value from the citizens when they see pruning being done, and they, if I think the gentleman said he was rather tall, and I can tell you that if he could walk under those trees without hitting them, then I don't know how he was doing that, because they were low enough that they would have hit anybody in the head. And then again, we're trying to shape the trees. Unfortunately, we can't go back every year and single prune out every branch. So.
So was your response to him before Tom's or after Tom's?
It was
I don't know.
after.
I don't remember the sequence.
It was after.
Okay. And so did that satisfy him?
I have not heard another word
okay.
from him. So I offered if he'd like to meet and discuss it, or we could go over it and could show him, and I've not heard from him.
Okay. Any other questions for Doug?
Well, just as an aside, we're talking about C-Train Drive, and what was the other one? Cambridge Drive, and we got complaints about the same trees in the same street a number of years ago. I remember that, going out and inspecting the trees. And yes, they were assertively pruned, but it does not harm them, it does not damage them. They bounce right back. And that's just the way we handle it. I have a question for the arborist.
Go ahead.
If you don't mind. In my neighborhood, the AEP and their contractor Asplund are out and about, pruning fairly aggressively trees in their right-of-way under their lines. Have we heard any public complaints? Have you been in conversation with AEP? Because I see trees, in that case, I would say I see trees that do not look very properly pruned and trimmed. They go in a V and the line goes through the middle, etc. So inevitably the city will hear questions and maybe complaints.
I haven't heard any complaints from. I have constant contact with AP. I've discussed a couple places for them where they're going to actually do almost a total cutback of brush and stuff for the city. But I've also, asked them to keep me apprised of any citizens that are upset with the pruning being done. I've heard nothing from. We've had no issues that's come to me. From any of the AEP pruning. Now they are going to be working across the valley and up into Euclid Avenue area and Darlington Road again and stuff. And there's some more older, more mature trees in those areas that, we may have some more. I did meet with a citizen already and let her know that, they were coming and, they would work with her and try to keep the tree as but it was also, I will also point out, it is also a tree that supposedly when it was pruned the last time, it was going to die. It was horrible. It was awful and terribly done, and they did a terrible job. However, if you look at the tree today, you look at it and go, oh my Lord, that tree needs pruned. Again, I think it goes back to the shock value. People don't expect to see big holes in their trees. And unfortunately, we all like electricity and we all need electricity. And, I think that they do a pretty good job considering there are some instances where not everybody's perfect in pruning, and sometimes people get lazy when they do their pruning. But for the most part, I'd say he does a very good job now in being conscientious of what they're doing. I really haven't had any issues with them in the last 4 years. Now they haven't been really in the city in the last 4 years, but so far this year, no issues that I know of.
It seems to me the last time we had someone come to our meeting and complain, it was Darlington. It was that Mr. Wolfschlager or something. Was that the same tree that?
It's the same tree, yes.
And they're back there already. Wow.
Yeah, the tree is back up in the lines, and
Yeah.
it's going to be pruned. So.
Doug, refresh my memory. Before AEP comes or their contractors, as planned, etc., do they leave door hangers? Do they reach out to the residents? Or what is their policy?
Any tree that is on your property, they will leave, they go through and with the MOU that we have with them, they leave door hangers or they make contact with the property owners.
But not if it's a city
If it's
tree,
a city tree, we know they're in town and working on it.
and they don't have to,
I think they do still go through the neighborhood and leave door hangers
Okay.
saying that they're coming
that we're
through.
going to be in the area.
Yeah. And then again, they told me they were coming in, they provide us maps of where they're going in the city, and we can kind of get out in front of it. Like, that was the whole purpose I got out in front of, here, they're coming up the hill. So
Right.
this is what's going to happen.
Thank you. Thank you for doing that.
And they will try to work with you as much as possible. I mean, I've stood out there when they've cut, knowing that they're going to be there, and expressed my wishes. And they try very hard, and we're really pretty good at accommodating, not cutting a giant V through the middle of my tree. So,
Yeah, the only complaint that I really know of is the one I had with them when they did a storm clearing. And they went and they cleaned in a back alley that we don't have access to. And the tree had broken off and was laying against the lines, and they just dropped the tree and they leave the mess for the homeowner or for whoever to clean up. In our case, because it was in the right of way, it was our tree and mess to clean up, which was not a big deal, but I didn't know it was there until the citizen had called in a complaint about it, said that the people told it was her job to clean it up, and unfortunately it wasn't.
Yeah.
So.
Any other questions for Doug? Thanks, Doug. Let's see, staff comments are next. The one item on the agenda is the discussion of community outreach activities. And I think the one thing that I had marked was that Doug and I had talked last April or May about our desire to involve school groups or schools in the Arbor Day activities. And then Elaine happened to mention that also. And I guess you've already had discussions using Frederica and whoever the Parks and Rec representative is. So I don't know when the best time to really start gearing up for that. I would say after the first of the year to decide where we're going to plant the tree, what involvement the school groups could have with the process. Is that what you're thinking, Doug? Or
Yeah, I mean, decide what level of, do you want elementary school or middle school or high school level, and then where we're going to go with the tree and what it might be involved in it.
Okay. Arbor Day is traditionally celebrated on the last Friday of April. So you can sort of keep that in mind. That's why I say we've got, maybe if we wait till after January 1st and start gearing up for that.
Just remember, you're only going to meet every other month.
I know.
Oh, that's right.
Well, you have, if you meet on the opposite months too, for your outreach or
Yeah.
what you're guys are wanting to do, you can discuss things like that too.
One suggestion I might have, and I don't know, Frederica, you might be able to tell us better, but is there more like an Earth Day celebration or anything like that at Hayes, or is there any knowledge of that? Or
Not really. I know personally, I didn't know what Arbor Day was until coming here, but unless you're in an AP environmental science class or like climate changers or something, then I don't think the kids really do a lot of celebration or like Earth Day type things, which I think could be something that we could advertise in the school. I could talk to Bakunas because I know that the AP kids like to get together and organize things with the school. Like we did a walk for water thing where a lot of kids who weren't in the AP class came out and did it to raise awareness about people in Africa not having water. I feel like we could organize something like that and get the school knowing about it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
That would be good. Another idea I had, since they're not using Willis anymore as a school, they had altered the front of that building so that it was a bus parking, and it's devoid of all trees. And now that it's not used as a school for students,
Good idea.
I wonder about doing some, I guess the city would be involved in a different way, but to promote the idea of maybe replanting trees along there?
They still have buses that line up there for, I don't know if they have meetings there or
Really?
what
Yeah.
they're doing, but
Fifth
they're still,
graders still pop in to
Oh.
that school for
Okay.
certain classes. So that's, yeah, it still does get buses.
Yeah.
It is a heavily used building, not just
It is.
schools, but also political stuff,
Yeah,
cultural
yeah.
events, and so on. So yeah, that
It would be nice to have some
it would be nice.
landscape there.
Trees back
Yeah. Yeah.
It does look very blank.
It does, it does. Well, just keep that in the back of your mind, and if anybody can think of a way to incorporate some trees in that front scape.
the other suggestion I was going to make was, and the reason why I was asking Frederica about the Earth Day is a lot of communities combine, because they're one weekend right after the other. A lot of communities combine them together.
Arbor Day and Earth Day?
Yes.
Yeah.
And have their Arbor Day early, because I think Earth Day is a week before Arbor Day is.
Yeah.
So,
Doug, have you looked at Hayes to see if there's any places that they could plant trees up there? Because I think that would get more of the Hayes students involved rather than go to the elementary schools. I know the last time when we planted the one tree up by Euclid, since they've done all the renovations, have you taken?
I've not looked closely at the school to see where areas might be. I just honestly haven't.
Okay.
But it's something I could take a look at. I don't know what their future parking lot expansions or things like that might be also, so.
Anything else under staff comments? All right, member comments, and let's see if we can hammer out some sort of tentative schedule for meetings between now and, I don't know, June.
Well, I have one question that's unrelated to that,
Mhm.
though. So, I know last year we had talked about figuring out what our citywide canopy cover was.
Yeah.
I think it's a relatively straightforward thing to do. But and I'm happy to do it, but I would need a contact from city's IT or GIS or someone to get the appropriate shape files to plug in. So does anyone know who I should talk to?
I do.
GIS coordinator is Rachel Hostetler.
I can help speak with her, and Ted, and then have her coordinate with you if
Okay.
you're interested. If that's
That's fine.
Okay.
Speaking
All
of
right, so
canopy
I'll start an email
Yeah.
Did
chain.
you use, okay,
With you
the
and Ted,
dispatch?
that-
Okay.
or if you email Ted and myself, then we can.
Yeah, perfect, yeah.
I'm going to let Tom jump ahead and pass this out because there was
While we're on
a,
the subject, you have
Yeah,
the 6
yeah,
copies there. This is an article from the Columbus Dispatch about tree canopies.
Oh, I had no idea, Tom.
And just so Columbus has a relatively sparse tree canopy. It is only 22%. Whereas Pittsburgh has 42%, Cincinnati 39%, Minneapolis 31%, Austin, Texas 30%. So it would be good to find out what our tree canopy actually is. And if it's below a certain percentage, we should maybe certainly push to enhance the tree canopy, which is part of our mission and mandate.
Mhm.
Our statute does mention tree canopy. We must maintain it and enhance it and so on. So just informational. It was also on my radar, that tree canopy project. I would be in favor of seeing that, putting it on the agenda for the next year or so.
Okay, great. I agree. Okay, meeting schedule, back to me. Well, first of all, before I do even that, new members, are we still, assuming that Mr. Eddy is going to continue, we're
I
still
haven't heard anything different,
-1 person?
just -1.
Okay. Anybody contact Susan Logan? That was the name I gave to Ted last.
I personally have not, I didn't have the name or
Okay.
number. So
Okay.
if you have it, I would be happy to reach out.
I don't, but
I can forward, I have it, I can
That would
forward
be,
that to you.
absolutely.
She's a very active lady in the Historical Society and various entities.
I asked her in person and she was, I think she needs a little convincing.
yeah,
I agree that she would be ideal. But,
Well, I can talk some zero. So
And tell her she doesn't have to be chairperson or vice chairperson for at least 2 years.
Use whatever you got.
She was tepid, but she didn't say no, so I consider that a possibility. Okay, so meeting schedules. If we keep the formal meeting schedules for every other month, we have August, October, December, February, April, and June. We don't want to meet in December.
Well, we've never met in December.
Yes.
Regardless. But this is one of the things, when we were talking about it, we're basically keeping it on the schedule on a monthly thing in case we wanted to meet in, say, November or even January and have 2 meetings in a row as a makeup. That's something, does that make sense? Like, I'm holding this meeting at this date and time each month as we normally would. And then that way, if we need to add an additional meeting too, we would have that option. And if this doesn't work, then we go back to the way it was. But if there's nothing on the agenda, we can cancel a meeting like we have in the past. So, but
If she cancels it, you could lose the room availability because somebody else.
Oh, if you can't,
What
okay.
I'm saying is I would, on my schedule, on the city schedule, I would always have this room blocked off for shade tree at this time.
Yep.
In the event, like, obviously, we're not gonna most likely meet the 4th Tuesday of
December,
I
yeah.
believe that's Christmas Day, so.
It is Christmas Day. Actually, you are absolutely right. The other option is we can always hold a impromptu, as long as I give 48 hours notice to the public and media, we can schedule a meeting at a different date and time, as long as the room is open.
Yeah.
So I'm not too worried about the December one. If we wanted to meet for, say, in like November, we could. But I have to look at the calendar too to see if that falls at Thanksgiving week.
It usually
No.
is, it'll be the Tuesday after Thanksgiving this
So
year,
that
right?
wouldn't
Yeah.
be really a
Yeah.
conflict if you guys were available. So that's like an option. We would have a meeting 2 months in a row,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I would think that the 2-month in a row meeting, if we do February, April, usually the April meeting is like after Arbor Day, certainly after Earth Day. So if we want to do a double meeting, I would think it would be
When it's more
March,
busier time.
or we switch and do January, March, something like that.
Something to look.
I would think a
right.
March meeting would be,
But I just want to
Okay,
let you know,
idea.
like, that's what our thought was because we're doing this with the Parks Board too, is also keep their designated date and time for the off meeting scheduled in case we need the room for a last.
Okay. So to approach it in a different way, we were saying there are some other activities that we might like to do. So what might those be and how long would it take to get it?
Doug, did Ted speak with you about that?
No.
So, okay, well, you guys had mentioned that you would like to do a tour or to go to the greenhouse
Mhm.
and not being an official meeting. So that would be
Okay.
a good opportunity if you wanted to do that. Another thing we talked about was getting you guys together and maybe videotaping, I mean, just even on a basic iPhone or phone about like the volcano mulching, is that what you call it? I'm learning, see, I'm learning.
Yeah.
That like the proper way to mulch your trees and why you don't want to do tree mulching a certain way. And then we could maybe post that
I see.
through social media as a way of educating. So you can work on maybe outreaching a different way. So
That's interesting.
I don't know what you
Sure.
thought about that, but it might be, I mean, we get a lot of views on our social media when Lee puts his little videos on there and stuff. And it's just an interesting way of, an easy
Yeah, okay.
thought, I don't know. So that would be more your expertise on certain things you might want to discuss on it, but that was a thought.
But we don't have anything other than the greenhouse that we could do in September.
You
Okay.
want to do, is that something you're?
I would put the greenhouse off until next spring.
Spring, right. I remember you saying that last year.
It's pretty empty right now.
Right now, it's totally empty, yeah. I looked at the solar panel the other day and drove by the greenhouse, there's nothing to see.
So is there something you'd like to do in the fall? You do like more, that's the time you plant trees, correct?
Correct.
So would that be something maybe educational we could do? Or
Sure.
we could, I mean, it'd just be, this is kind of like a trial thought, so we have. I'm just thinking something like that goes seasonal.
Mhm,
People aren't
mhm.
probably mulching now.
Correct.
Right.
They're probably not pruning now. Well, Doug is pruning now, but they're thinking about pruning usually in the spring, I think. If we were going to do a pruning workshop, that would,
Well,
Be better.
Although fall pruning is not bad either.
I was just gonna say, is it better to prune at one time of year over another?
It depends on what you're pruning.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say, 'cause maybe the pruning one wouldn't be a bad one to discuss.
Pruning of any tree right now is good.
You can, and I'm willing to give you some of the trees in my yard to use as a.
Free labor.
Really? Really?
Just not the front trees.
It's not the front trees, I guess.
But if that's something you want to organize the date and time, like the same date and time as we would
Mhm.
normally do.
Right.
but there's nothing, Ted doesn't have anything he's gonna,
Well, he wanted this to be something you guys,
He wanted us to come up with these ideas.
he thought that might be, I mean.
Yeah.
If
It'll be
you had-
something that you're interested in as
Correct.
opposed to something he says, I
Yeah,
think you
right,
should
yeah.
do this.
Well, I am all in favor of the volcano mulching tutorial just because it's something that you see
it
constantly
everywhere.
walking down the street.
Well, I'm not even sure people know
And-
why we mulch. Why you mulch other than everybody else does it.
Right.
Why exactly are you using mulch and what is it for?
And this isn't something you necessarily have to do at 7:00 at night if you wanted to arrange a different time. It'll get darker if you're doing something outside sooner. I think September's still okay, but.
Well, I think Ted did a great job of suggesting that we come up with ideas.
Well, would you like to do the volcano mulching? Would we can get some mulch and we can do it?
I almost think that would just go right in with the tree plant.
in the spring.
Yeah, or no, in the fall.
Oh, in the fall.
If you wanted to do a fall planting of a tree and then show the proper technique for staking of the tree and proper technique for mulching and watering of the tree. And even if you stake it at all now, because now people are saying you don't need to stake trees again. So it's just, it goes back and forth.
It's like eggs.
It's all
You
stake it if you want it to
stake them or
grow
you don't.
straight.
All these are great ideas, but somebody still has to get all the pieces together and all the planning. Somebody's got to be on camera doing the explanation. So,
So we're gonna work that out amongst ourselves, who's gonna, our ideas, our format, and what we're gonna do with our non-formal months that we meet as far as community outreach.
Correct, I guess that's what I'm hearing. And then the next question is, are we going to be able to pull something off in September? Because otherwise, the next informal meeting is November.
That's probably when you'd be planting trees in that.
That's when we'll be planting most of our street trees anyway.
Well, would you want to video the planting of a street tree?
It would be the easiest thing probably to do. I mean, that would be
Okay.
to film one of you planting one of the street trees, absolutely.
Okay.
Maybe get leaves.
I guess my concern is if as long as there's a big caveat that if you're going to plant a tree between the sidewalk and the berm, that's the city's job to do. But this is a demonstration and this is what we do.
Right.
I would hate to give people the impression that it's okay for them to go out and plant a tree between their sidewalk and berm.
That's a very good point. You're absolutely right. That would be construed as, oh, well, they planted it between the street and the sidewalk, so that means I can too, so.
That's the first thing that I thought of when we were thinking
Well,
about
it
doing
sounds
that.
also like maybe we need one of these informal months to come up with the rest of our year of informal months.
So this doesn't run long.
Okay,
Yeah.
and this is something I wouldn't say you have to do it every month, but we want to.
Sure.
You guys have been a more active board on education. Then it's something that you seem to do it more, like you said, in one period.
It's all clustered, yeah.
And you're really busy during that time frame from basically the end of April to the Watershed Festival. And then it sort of,
Yeah.
not.
I could see it being useful to do. First of all, I think it's a great idea. I planted a tree this spring and went on vacation. We were gone for 10 days. And it just happened to be during the start of our sort of mini drought this summer. I came back and my tree had dropped like at least half of its leaves. I was very sad. And so maybe we could do timely things as well. Like, hey, it's July, it's going to start to get dry. If you planted a tree last fall or this spring, you might want to think about watering it now. Here's some.
That's simple. but-
Here's
but, yeah,
it's simple,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it could be a timely
But a lot of
reminder
people
in June
don't
or
know
July
that,
that, okay, and here's some hacks to do it. You can put a tiny little hole in a 5-gallon bucket. You can buy a gator bag. I mean, all kinds of things. But anyway,
What about?
I'm sad about my tree. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. That was really dumb to go on vacation right after you planted the tree.
Well, no, I planted the tree in the early spring.
Oh, wow.
I want to make one. We were on vacation over the 4th of July.
What about any bad insect outbreaks that people might be wondering about that would be something we could probably do in
I've
September?
had people asking me about their evergreens.
Yeah,
Spruce.
Their
Yeah.
spruces and,
I apologize, my brain is non-functioning sometimes. The needle cast is still continuing marching on through the Midwest, so that's
So Diplodia?
no needle cast on spruce trees.
Okay.
Have you seen spider mites or anything like that in spruce?
I found evidence of that.
Most of what I've seen has been needle cast, and the Austrians, the few that we have left in the city, probably 90% of them have the diplodia in them.
But that's pine, right? You're talking about
Yeah,
Austrian
that's
pine.
Austrian pine.
I just had someone ask me what a bagworm was. They had never heard of bagworms, thought it was part of what the tree grew.
I just saw an article where people were confusing the bagworms with the tent caterpillars also. And
Well, that was in the same discussion too. There was the this and the that, and there was a bonfire, and I said, yeah, you did great.
What, you burn them all?
Burn them all.
That's good.
Yeah, so just a little
So
more
those are all things that we
information.
could put out there.
Yeah.
I just saw that where someone just did that. I forget where it was. They were saying the difference between the bagworm and the tent caterpillar, what was going on with that. Webworm, sorry. That was the tent caterpillar, but webworm. Same thing.
So are we going to attempt something in September, or have we ruled that out?
I haven't ruled it out, but there's nothing that we have ready to go. So I guess my suggestion at this point is we can use email and discuss any opportunity that we think of as we're in the shower tomorrow morning, which is when I usually have my best thoughts.
And we don't have to do like
Yeah, I know.
live. I mean, we can.
You don't have to do what?
Like, we don't have to do it like Facebook Live.
Oh, yeah,
You know, we
yeah.
can edit it.
I wasn't even on that radar for live. There was editing all in my mind.
Okay. Maybe Frederica, some of your students, you guys are all good at that. My daughter makes movies all the time, little
Yeah.
clips. She's really good at that. So, you know, but we can. It doesn't have to be like on that night.
Right.
So we can do the filming and then work on.
And we could aim at November when we're planting trees anyway, when the city's planting trees. And it doesn't have to be one of us, it could be the city, and we can just be explaining why it's done the way it is.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be one of us planting.
Is it entirely possible then that September we use as a planning? Are we still meeting here on these
I wouldn't
informals?
think so.
Well, the room will be available.
I mean, I just talked to Doug.
What?
Staff, I mean, we have to have a staff member here.
Gotta have staff, okay.
Well, would we have to have staff members on the alternate months if we're not meeting here? I'm just curious. I mean, if it's a formal meeting?
It's not a formal meeting.
It's informal on the
If you're
alternate
having a
ones.
formal meeting, then we need to have an agenda and everything. So if you're just meeting as a group, but not making any decisions.
Maybe we should just make it all by email.
I'll tell you what, let's just go into email this week. I'll send an email out with Ted, and because he wasn't able to be here tonight, and just do a little bit more in depth, and then we can do a sign up genius, whatever we need to, if we're going to do something in September on who's available to come, where the location is, and things like that, and we can kind of help get that going and see how it goes.
Okay.
If it doesn't work, then we try.
And so we should all recognize that our next formal meeting in this room for sure will be October.
Correct, and that is when we're hoping.
Yeah, and we're hoping to do something informally in between, but we don't know what. Okay, so, and I'm sorry to belabor this, but then are we going to skip November and December?
Well, I would probably say, let's see what plans we have.
Yeah, we have to, if we have an influx of plans that need approval, we'll have to meet, so.
Okay. Okay, so all we know for sure is our formal meeting is in October, the next one.
I would, it's probably totally against what Ted will say, but I would plan on meeting in November also, if you're not gonna meet in December.
Yeah, okay.
And then also you could do, maybe the November meeting could be the tree planting and meeting, just kind of wrap up the year kind of meeting.
Okay. Back to the tree planting issue where you and Dave were discussing if we were doing a video and you were showing a tree being planted in the tree lawn. You don't want to do that. Do you have any other tree planting activities in a park or anything that we could?
I'm sure we can.
You could do something, yeah. Okay. Okay, thanks. Any other member comments?
Yes, I have something I would like to bring up, but anybody else have something? Okay. This is probably also in preparation for our meeting with Planning Director David Eflin in October. So I have in front of me the tree ordinances, chapter 1168, of the City of Delaware. Let me just quote a few sentences here. Okay, so section 1168.04, each major tree removed during the course of the development of a lot shall be replaced by the owner of the lot with trees that have a total caliber equal to or greater than the total caliber of the removed major tree. The essential message is each tree removed has to be replaced, or a payment has to take place in lieu of that tree replacement. A developer or property owner shall replace all trees removed. The intent of replacement of removed trees overall is to maintain an equivalent tree canopy citywide before and after removal/construction. I think these are some of the major points I would like to reiterate. These are the city ordinances. Now, the actual practice has been somewhat different. City Council met last night, and once again, there was a development project, and so there is a developer, there is a new development. It's called High Point Place Apartments on Boatown Road. Many new housing developments are being proposed right now, some of which are sort of controversial, others less so. City Council did not make a decision. They delayed the decision. But there are a total of 383 trees on that property. Per the submitted tree survey, the applicant indicated they are removing 82 trees. The caliber inches are of secondary issue right now. So 82 trees are removed. A developer plans to preserve 301 trees. So, as far as the 82 trees are concerned that are scheduled to be removed, what would be your perception? What should happen to those 82 trees? What is the developer, according to our city ordinances, obligated to do? What has the Shade Commission been doing for the last 10 or 20 years? It's not a rhetorical question.
Oh, okay. So it's a replacement per caliper inch?
Yes.
Or cash in lieu of?
So
I mean, and that has, as far as I understand it, with very few exceptions, that has been the practice.
So these 82 trees need to be removed, or a payment has to be made in lieu of them, etc. That's my understanding too. This is what our current tree ordinance says. This is the practice, has been the practice of the Shade Commission ever since it was founded in, I believe, 1977. If I remember, I was not around at that time. But what's happening? This is like project number 6 or 7 or 8. What's happening is, because the rationale is, the current practice is, because the developer is preserving 301 trees, the developer is off the hook for those 82 trees. The developer gets credit for save the trees, tree preservation credit. Okay? That has been the practice now for quite a few projects, and there's a new argument being made right now because of other recently approved projects of that nature. A precedent has been set, and so that's now used against the Shade Commission. Because we've now done it for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, we can do it again.
Since when do we do it 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times?
I monitor City Council. I'm aware of all these projects. City Council has been approving projects.
No, that's not my question. Well, if council has, but have we?
We have not.
Okay.
We are not. Well, see, the Shade Commission isn't even informed of these things. We get plans, and we determine is the tree species okay, etc., and that's the extent of our task.
I tend to disagree. That is not true, Tom. We look at the plans. There is a list of the trees and the caliper inches of the trees that are being removed. I double check those. I do spot checks in the field to make sure that the the developer is being honest about it. And that is presented, that this many trees, we've seen plans where there's large amounts of trees that are being taken out, and they're here for you to see, and you can look at those plans, and you can decide whether or not you want those plans, you think you agree with those plans or not. We've approved High Point Village. This board has already approved High Point Village, of High Point Apartments.
Yeah. So
and we looked at that area.
We, correct me if I'm wrong, Doug, and I don't want to be, and I'm not want to be argumentative, but the plans we see, and I'm not sure about the plan we see tonight. We see a plan, we see the trees, we learn about the tree species, but we normally and routinely do not discuss the caliber inches, removed and replaced, and tree fund and tree bank fund, and et cetera, et cetera. That is not first and foremost on our agenda.
In the plans that were sent to you, there is a list of the trees and the caliper inches that were taken out for the plans that we're going to see tonight.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they are provided to you to see. It's not a...
But my underlying question is, what the city, the actual practice of the city is not in compliance with what our tree ordinances say.
Were those 82?
I've been talking about this for the past year. I've talked to the city manager about it. I've brought it to the attention of David Eflin. Hopefully, he can bring some clarity to the issue. The Shade Commission has never ever approved the idea of tree preservation credit, credit for saved trees. That is a novelty. That is nowhere to be found in our tree ordinances. And all I want is clarity, about that. Who came up with the idea, and where's the rationale, and what is the legitimation behind it? I don't see it. Nobody has explained it to me so far.
Okay, and that's something that David Eflin would have to go
hopefully
into.
we can do
But I want it on the record that you are provided with documentation of the trees that are being removed and the caliper inches that are being removed.
We never
Yes.
know, we never know anything about the math that happens at some point.
We
whether
know
it's
about
a-
the caliper inches, but we don't always know about the payments. So in plan reviews we saw last month, 2 months ago now, there was a long list of trees that were removed in a particular development. And we were made aware of that. I agree. The one thing that I forgot to mention during member comments, I'm glad you brought it up, Tom, was that I don't recall discussing the value of those and what the math and the formal exchange of value was of those trees. They were listed, and we were told what was removed and what was kept and all of that. So it would be nice for that to be explicit with each plan, so that we know this is how much is going into the tree fund. These are the caliper inches that were put back on the property. Because that's, as per ordinance, that's what needs to happen.
Is that,
And I agree that with you, Tom, in respect that before we approve plans like that, we should probably make sure that we have the math in front of us before we say yes, even if the species and all of that are approved. And a lot of times what's going to happen, what I think is going to happen tonight with this plan is they're putting in more caliper inches than they're taking out. And that's totally fine. I mean, they've covered themselves. They've only removed very few trees and are putting back way more than they take out. And that's awesome. That helps improve our canopy cover in the city. But there may very well be cases where I guess I just assume that math is being done and that the tree fund is being credited.
at what
But-
point is the math being done? I mean, is it,
Yeah.
if we asked to see the math, show your work, like your math teacher used to say, at the time we approved the plans, my guess is that hasn't been done yet. That
I would assume it would.
Really?
Yeah.
You might be right.
Yeah, because otherwise,
think
I
it
mean,
would have
the developer needs to know,
Right.
I'm sure the developer's keeping very close track of their ins and outs.
But who
And-
besides the developer is? Who is it
Well,
that
it would
says,
be
here's
the-
the math?
It'd be the planning, I would assume it'd be during planning.
Who does the math, the actual?
So where's the checks and balances? Is that what we're asking here
That's
for
part
each
of it,
project?
yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And I guess the other part of the question, if I'm understanding, is that if there is indeed a tree preservation credit, who decides that? Is there a formula and shouldn't be codified like everything else related to tree?
Yeah, if that has happened, the only time that I know of that something like that has happened is with the school expansion in Dempsey. That's the only time I've known of.
First time,
and-
but there have been 6, 7, 8 projects since that are diverging from our tree ordinances. And sometimes significantly so.
Right, well, I guess that's top of the agenda for talking with Mr. Eflin next, or 2 months from now, I would assume.
For the record, I've made statements in front of the planning commission. I've sent letters, I've talked to people, and I've never ever, in many months now, I've never received a satisfying answer. That was the reason why Tom Holman visited this commission a couple of months ago, not to provide an answer, but to set up, maybe a meeting with David Eflin. But for the record, I started, making noise about that many, many months ago, and I've yet to see, a satisfying answer or a rationale. Nobody has been able to tell me where in our tree ordinances, this radical departure of our practice is based. So I'm looking forward to David Eflin's visit. And I wanted to bring that to your attention.
Thank you.
I hope you share at least some of my concerns. Checks and balances. That's a good way of putting it. I don't think. Well, maybe you correct me. I don't want to be offensive here, but I'm not sure if the Shade Commission has done its due diligence as far as the math is concerned. I think we need to be more watchful about those checks and balances, and need to see the math and how it works out.
You said you hadn't received an adequate response. Did you receive a response?
No,
No
I've not
response.
received a
No
response.
response, okay. Okay, other member comments before we move into plan reviews? Okay, plan reviews, we're up.
Once we can all squeeze out.
So let's,
Like in sequence.
Someone mind explaining to Frederico what you're kind of doing?
yeah.
Please.
The other plan we have for approval tonight is the music Glen Ross North. I'm sorry, Glen Ross North, sections 2, 3. 2, 3, and 4. This is the north end. Glen Parkway is to the west. This area is going to encompass the areas. There's going to be a pool house, heat and health, and then like a park area with playground structures and such in it for the park, for the pool house area. Street leading into the Sycamore Lane, and usually The developer is doing a much better job with understanding our diversity. Made my job very simple this time, as they've not only chosen trees that we use on a regular basis, but then also they've already gone ahead and done the actual diversification on the streets.
Didn't you have the desire to put sycamores on Sycamore Street? Sycamore Lane?
I don't.
Thought I'd ask.
London plane tree, just fake it.
I don't.
Exactly. Close enough. So, it's pretty straightforward.
And Frederica, did he explain to you about diversification? It used to be, when I started the Shade Tree Commission, we would plant the same tree along the entire street. It needed to be, the rationale was it needs to be more aesthetical, more beautiful, etc. But we have moved away from that, because after the annual ash bomber came, entire streets were wiped out, totally naked, devoid of trees. It makes more sense to diversify. We have little clusters of trees of maybe 6, 7, 8, and if one species gets destroyed, there are plenty of trees left. So we started doing that a number of years ago.
Doug, was this your suggestion for them too, is this sight line here to make sure the
That
tree
is
setbacks or
that
it's
is
just
the new engineering standards.
Good.
These sightlines are
good?
set.
Good.
Interesting. Do you know how far the setback?
I think, if I'm not mistaken, I believe they're 20 feet.
20 feet, that's
Good.
makes sense.
And it depends on, there's a whole, it depends on what the speed limit is on the streets and things, how far back that side triangle is.
Well, if 1 inch equals 100 feet, that's about an inch, so that's 100 there to there to the center. That's a good sight line. Well, while this is out, this is a good opportunity to talk about the proper tree planting. This might be a good diagram for our community outreach information. I know I digress, but it would be a good.
Now,
Visual.
the other thing we don't require is we really don't require the double stage on the trees.
Okay, that's white out. Exactly. People still use that, believe it or not.
They do.
I do. I was running around my office looking for some today. Or corrector tape. Yeah, this looks great. What a great little species. So you didn't have input on this at all. This is straight from the architect.
Well, I looked at it and I said, well, it looks fine. That's it.
I mean, you didn't have to alter.
No,
Okay.
no.
So they're,
Wait.
they're able to plant red oaks out there? Okay.
What's that? Yeah, the red oaks.
Yeah, Northern Red.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that they're, because I know you had trouble with them out in that part of town at one point, that they were successful after that.
This is the 2 athletic fields, full house. So that's what the center of that other plan was. They basically are going, they're going simple as to one state street maples for their little planting that they have full house. So I don't think there's actually landscape going there on the full house. So, or if there is, it hasn't come forward yet. So this is just that. So these are the 2 play zone areas, athletic fields and full houses. Down Glen Parkway, it's north of Cheshire Road and kind of northeast corner of Glen Parkway. You know where Glen Ross Park is?
The source point is,
Yes.
it's Cheshire.
That's Cheshire.
And it's in that general area.
It lets up to the railroad tracks and across from the railroad tracks, it's Cheshire Elementary. And then Newton High School is over.
So that's that area. And the buffer areas I didn't see anything on the list that was offensive or an issue. Pretty much tried and true with numbers.
A lot of spruce in there for the spruce issues we're having, huh? That's true. I mean, there's
37, 29, and 29. 30, 60, 90, almost 100.
That's ABs.
This, I'm looking at the eastern buffer.
Yeah, just at that part, this is the western buffer. Yeah, it's a lot of, I mean, it's just a thought, if they're all given their dying out, with their issues, maybe something to discuss with them.
You talking about bad ones?
No, the needle.
I am saying that only, I don't even know if it's needle drop, but I always wondered if it was just an age thing, because they get, you think
It's in bulk. Yeah, it's everywhere. Yeah. I went past a Christmas tree farm the other day and it was sad.
wow.
Yeah, I mean, it was sad. I'd say more than half of their trees.
Is there even a solution for them? Do you know, Doug, for that treating?
You can spray.
You can spray them, but it's a fungus.
Yeah, I mean, we're spraying, we're fighting it in our yard, we're spraying, and I don't usually do that, but.
Well, so would the recommendation be to divest some of these spruce for other?
For other pine,
yeah, it
for
could be other
pine,
evergreens.
yeah, it could be other evergreens, you could use pines, you could use.
But we don't, as far as approved tree list, we don't have any evergreens on the approved tree list to recommend, but.
No, but we could point out the fact that we have an issue that I think is going to be ongoing for a while.
Well, what else, what else works and does well?
I don't know. I feel like it's something we need to do more research on as Shade Tree Commission. Because I mean, if you're seeing the dieback or the death on a regular basis, that's a lot.
It should be of concern to us.
Mm-hmm. And concern to them. It's a lot of money to invest in trees
Sure.
that in a year or two would have to be
Right.
replaced.
At the expense.
Yeah, at their expense.
Well, in year 3, it's not that expensive.
Right.
At this point, the expense goes
Then it
back
comes
on-
back to
No,
the,
this probably wouldn't go back to the
This is
city. This would
HOA.
probably go back to HOA.
yeah,
This would go back to the neighborhood
Right.
association.
but it's going to be,
So it would be us moving the solid to say, hey,
Right.
maybe this is going to cost you some money down the road.
you might want to look at alternative evergreens.
Maybe.
Divest some spruce and add something else.
Yeah.
I think that's
I-
so how do we make that recommendation, I guess? Is the-
That's how we would make it, is just say, you know, with, how do I word it, with ongoing.
Due to ongoing problems.
Disease and such, I recommend maybe reduce the number of spruce trees and replace them with alternative. Of course, they're gonna say, what alternative?
So I guess the question is what's
Because
going on, Doug?
I mean, are hemlock doing okay? Are
Fir trees.
Come up with a thing that's coming, we don't know about that one
Okay.
yet.
Fir?
What? I don't know. I guess it depends on location, right?
Yeah.
You know, unfortunately, because it's along the railroad tracks, what they want is a buffer between the railroad tracks.
Right.
So, you know, even like bald cypress or things like that, that have an appearance of spruce tree
Yeah.
or a pine.
It still has too much.
It's gonna drop
It's gonna
its
drop
age.
It moves.
If this is not a heavily traveled place, red cedar's growing everywhere
Right.
right now.
It's pretty compact, yeah.
Yeah,
And it's
They're pretty cheap, right? They're pretty
I don't
affordable
know
for
if
something
anybody
that
sells
just
them.
buffer.
That's the problem, red cedar.
It's either.
If anybody sells them, I mean, they're probably, the berries are poisonous, right? And that's the problem with red cedar. But if they don't
if it's
have-
along the railroad tracks.
if it's
it's
on
not
the
gonna
railroad
be out
tracks,
where-
there aren't paths and things like that, then red cedar's pretty good buffer. Something to mix in, there are fir trees and white pine isn't a great.
I would suggest somebody
Whatever.
does some
Research.
on that, research on that, but we can always say the recommendation of maybe reducing out. spruce
Yeah, I was
and
gonna say,
pine.
yeah, or at least reduce their numbers and add in something else in the mix besides spruce.
At this time, I mean, about the other thing, it's fine.
Yeah.
To do what they want to do.
What form, which one do you want?
Go ahead, Steve.
So how do you communicate that to them on that?
It'll go through.
The note takers.
Totally, totally.
Okay, it's written. You can relay the details.
Cool.
Is that it, Doug?
That's it.
Thanks.
So I guess I move that we adjourn.
And second.
Susan, do you need a gavel?
No, so moved. No, you can already do that.
Yay.
Who seconded? Susan?
Oh, I thought someone over here did.
We both did the same
Yeah.
time, so. Chad.
So,
No, that was
for sure in October, look for your email about an update, perhaps in September, of some work meeting to come up with brainstorm ideas on.
And if we have any great ideas, send them on there.
Elaine will start an email chain.
I am going to.
Thank you, everyone.
Are you out of here? You're going, look at you.
I'm still
No, I'm
recording.
asking you if I need to.
So you understand.